All right, folks, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bucks of America podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Vance. Tonight's podcast is with some savages here out in Colorado. These guys have known each other for a good chunk of time here, playing football together, being lifelong friends. I got D'Angelo, I have Steve, and I have Maddie. And these guys came together and they created something called HUNTwallet. Go check out their app. You can find it in both the iTunes and Android. Now, what this summation of this is what I've learned is that you can basically you put all your inventory that you're going to be bringing with that, and you get to have opportunities to share your stuff. It teaches you how to manage all your preference points, receive automated notifications, download hunting brochures to all 50 states, which is good. So even if you live in Alaska, you can find out what's going on down there in Florida. So you have a variety of things to look at. You can plan solo or group trips. You can build, like I mentioned earlier, you can build and save your custom gear list and such. So this way it has a lot of opportunities for you to be able to become successful at your next hunt. Now, Matt reached out to me because he came across my podcast with HuntFest with Efron and Jeff here a few weeks ago, and he hit me up with a conversation. I told him, oddly enough, the same day he reached out to me, a friend of mine, Jeremy Fisher from the Toxon App, he sent me the link to their Instagram photos. Like, hey, you should check these guys out. And then just like kind of fates had things in store, and we crossed paths, and here we are tonight. So I'm looking forward to getting to know these guys, and I'm sure you guys are too as well. They are kind of setting the trend for trying to build something that's very cohesive, interactive, and it is very smooth running as well. So I'm going to ask some questions, but most of all, I want to find out more about who they are and to provide the insight between these three men and why they created the HUNTwallet. But first, I want to get to know these guys. I'm sure you guys do too. Gentlemen, go ahead and take it away.
All right, so D'Angelo Wilkinson, originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been living out in Colorado for roughly, 2006, about 17 years now. Growing up, I was not much of an outdoors person. My dad and my brothers, we'd go fishing. We'd go up to Arizona or northern Nevada and go hunt and go fish for trout and things like that. But hunting just wasn't in the cards. It was something that was always intriguing to me, just didn't have access to it. Came out to Colorado. I played football at Colorado State, the best school in the state. Played with Steve, and we roomed together. He would always try to get me out in the mountains and go hunting. He was a big hunter when we were going to school. Just didn't bite, and I wish I would have. And then met my wife up at CSU. We ended up moving to New Zealand shortly after we got married, and we lived over there for a couple years. Came back, and Steve, tapped on me again. He goes, "Man, you should get your hunter safety and you can go hunting." So I ended up getting my hunter safety back in, what was that, 2016? Yep, 2016. And went on my first hunt, which was a late season elk hunt, which was some funny stories in there. I actually wish we would have had HUNTwallet back then, because I didn't have, I was a new hunter, didn't have a fifth of the gear that I have now, didn't have sleeping bags and, the important stuff for a late season hunt. And on that particular hunt, Steve was supposed to bring the sleeping bag, and he didn't.
Well, he forgot to let me know. So
So ended up sleeping under a space blanket the whole night.
sounds like he was sleeping in a Lay's potato chip bag. Horrible.
But yeah, that was my first hunt, and I don't think we did see a group of bulls, but didn't kill anything. But after that, I was hooked, and that wasn't even hearing them bugling and things like that. It's just seeing being able to see them and interact with them out in nature. And then we after that, I was hooked. I went on multiple buck hunts, antelope hunts. And then probably 3 or 4 years after that, I got into archery hunting, which is just a whole nother beast. And that's been a blast. I mentioned earlier that I'm married, so I got a wife. I have 2 kids, 2 girls, one 3 and one 15 months. And my day job, until HUNTwallet, pays the bills, I am a marketer by trade, so don't have any technical experience. So it's been pretty interesting going a journey with building this application. We're not developing it, but it's just been interesting trying to get people or to understand the lingo and things like that.
Oh, completely understandable, especially now when you have the ChatGPT and other ways to help increase your programming too as well, to even cut some costs. It's amazing what's all coming. I've been started playing with ChatGPT here over the last couple of weeks because what Gary Vee was explaining to the youngsters out there is that AI is not going to go anywhere, and it's going to go out there, and it's like this is the time to learn that. And if you're able to become pretty efficient here in 5 years, you're going to be able to secure yourself in a position later down the road. But it's quite interesting in what it can create and what it's done, and it's darn right scary. It's like it's Skynet for sure.
Yeah.
Love it. Nice. I'm Matt. Steve and I grew up together in Boulder, Colorado, which I'm sure will surprise some folks, as Boulder doesn't have the most glowing reputation in the hunting community. But he's originally from Kansas and moved Colorado when he was young, and both my parents grew up on farms in Northwest Iowa, and maybe that has something to do with it. But I actually I didn't get into hunting until 4 years ago. This will coming up on my 5th archery season. And so I feel like I'm still very much new to the sport, to the hobby, to the lifestyle, to all the above. But I have a similar story to D'Angelo in that Steve's the one who got me into hunting too. I went to the University of Colorado, and after I graduated, I moved to Australia, spent some time over there, and then moved to San Diego and lived there for almost 10 years, and then Las Vegas for 2. And when I moved back from Las Vegas, it was 2019, mid 2019, and Steve and I stayed in touch as we've been good friends since middle school, I think, or high school. Yeah. And when I came back in town, he was like, you should get into archery hunting. And I was like, well, tell me about it. And he goes, it's everything that you enjoy already. You like to camp, you like to be outdoors, you like to work out, you like to spend a money. Challenge. Yeah. What these two failed to mention was the financial commitment.
Oh yeah, that'll do it to you.
So like $2,000, $3,000 in, and I still don't have everything on the list that they gave me. I was like, when does this fucking stop? When does this end? And thankfully they didn't. I mean, maybe I wouldn't have elected to get into it. But yeah, they took me up. My first archery season was that 2019 season. And I think it was us 3 and then a 4th friend. I think Matt, the other Matt, was with us that year. Mm-hmm. And I had a blast. I didn't really know. I wasn't really sure on it. I think it was just a lot to take in for the first time. It was brutal. I mean, I think probably everybody's going to say that, but it was an abnormally hot year where we were hunting, and an abnormally dry season where we were hunting. So we were just getting cooked. Every step we took sounded like we were stepping on potato chips. So stalking fucking sucked. The animals weren't moving. Water, like what historically these guys had said, some of the watering holes, wallows and so forth that were in existence, they had dried up or maybe even never had gotten water. So it was just a really, I guess, challenging but interesting experience, but enjoyed it to continue doing it and haven't looked back. Enjoyed it immensely. I do find it very interesting how the archery season seems to be just long enough to make you happy that it doesn't come around for several months afterwards.
True.
Yeah, that was my kind of foray into hunting. And then my background, like D'Angelo, I don't have a technical background, though. Coincidentally, the job that I was rolling off of when I moved back to Colorado, one of the last projects I was working on was we were developing an app for we were developing a resort. And part of it was going to be what at the time we thought was a very forward-looking native app. And so I had the opportunity to work with a really awesome agency out of Dallas, and we had gotten pretty far in the app development process. So I had a very cursory understanding of designing and building a native app. My background has been a lot more in web development, again, not from the technical side, but leading teams who are involved with developing websites and stuff that's a little less intensive. So I had a background there, but I'm marketing and sales by trade myself. So I'm sure we can get into kind of how we got to the idea of HUNTwallet and kind of the progression and the life that's taken on. But when D'Angelo pitched the idea of HUNTwallet to me, coming off of that experience with the resort and building and designing that app, and I think I had 2 seasons under my belt at that point, and just connecting the dots, it had made all the sense in the world to me. So that's how I got into hunting. That's how I got around to app development, and I'll pass it on to Steve.
That's awesome. So, Steve, before I let you go, before we continue on with you, Steve, man, it's like you're just like me, man. I get into under people's skin. And I just get them motivated, and like they feed off my passion about archery. But before that, it was paintball. I mean, I could get anybody into paintball because, like, who would want to go out and shoot somebody in the face and get away with it? It's like it's absolutely a blast. Right. And that's what I do with all my friends in Arizona. It's like you should go play paintball with me first. Like, come out, rent their stuff, and it's like, dude, I want to go buy this gun. What do you think about this one? Like asking me for recommendations for a good entry level gun, or going up the market for either they want to get a pump or something like that. It's just having that charisma and that passion for the outdoors. It's addicting, and it's like then you just start showing everybody this, start showing them this, opening that door. But everybody's perception and their experiences are going to be far different than what you and I have come across, Steve. So, man, I love it, Steve. I like your passion behind it, because you got 2 guys that are not used to being out in the woods, but they're like, you like being in the woods, but now you're actually going out there hunting for food. Man, it changed the whole perspective. It's bringing out your inner woodsman, inner savage.
100%. Like they mentioned, I grew up my whole life hunting and fishing. Like funny stories, like in college, we'd make like mountain lion chili or bear stew, and I wouldn't tell D what it was, and I'd wait for him to finish his bowl, whatever it was we were eating, and then I'd tell him what it was, and then he'd talk about how his stomach hurt and all these things.
The smells.
Yeah. And then with Matt up in Boulder, like I was the friend that, like we'd have a bye week in football, so I'd go deer hunting or elk hunting, and then I'd come down to their house. And I think one of the first times our other buddy Matt, they were all out at the bars, and I had just gotten back and killed a deer, and had just skinned it and everything, had everything in the back of my truck. They lived up on the hill in Boulder, so I like decorated their whole door with all the legs and everything while they were gone, and then that's what they came back to. So all those good stories, but I think a lot of it was when you find like friends where you can expose them to what hunting is and what archery hunting is, you can explain to somebody all day long, like it's hard. Like the mountain doesn't care. Like you need to be in shape, all these things, but you're going to hear a bull bugle and you're going to get this adrenaline rush that you've never felt before. You may not even be able to pull your bow back, but I want you to feel that. And like getting people close to elk and like just in their, full testosterone, just, mating, fighting, all of that, just to get somebody in, scrub oak where you can see 6 yards and you've got bulls and elk all around you just going crazy, and just to see what their faces are and the experiences that they're going through. Like when D shot his first buck, I think we started hunting the rut in this archery area, and we'd see all these does. And one of our, mentors is like another dad for D'Lo and I. Growing up, he's the one that always took us hunting and fishing. And he's like, "Whoa," he's like, "Guys, stop archery hunting there." He's like, "You got all those does. You remember when you were young? Like, there's going to be boys there once all those does go into heat. Like, that's when you want to be back there." And we were like, "Oh, okay, we'll give it a try." And we went back there and we were like, "How do you shoot a moving target when these deer are just going absolutely crazy?" So I got to see D kill his first buck and like all those things. It's just an incredible feeling to get to experience. So
First turkey too.
yeah, first turkey, called that in with him. He called it from the bottom of a canyon in South Dakota, came full fanned, just drumming the ground. Like I was kneeled right behind him, kneeled for too long. We were like 15 minutes in a squatted position where everything goes numb. But just going through it, and I think going through those experiences in life, and like those are the friendships where you have to be selfish with hunting, because there's only it's seasons. It's not something you get to do year round. You get to experience those things once a year. And when you find the right group of friends that's willing to push themselves and go through that with you, like go through all of the suck, and just when you're not talking for 3 hours, like it's just grueling, but then it pays off. Like that's the incredible part about archery hunting.
You are exactly right, man. I couldn't explain it any better than that. It's amazing what the cold weather, the harsh weather, the heat can really do to a man's what's what we're looking for. His I can't his muster, his might, his grit. It's amazing what all that can do to a guy, because it's intimidating at the same time, but also it's like you get to really put yourself and push yourself to another level that you never thought you'd be able to. Like sitting through winter storms, or you're going out opening morning on during right when the rut kicks off and it's negative 13 degrees outside, and you got your beard covered in ice because you forgot your face mask.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Should have used HUNTwallet.
So true. So D'Angelo, why don't you tell me your experience with your first animal you took with your bow? Or your first animal, did you take it with a gun or a bow?
My first animal I took with a gun.
Okay.
And that was the deer.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the deer. So Steve, he kind of alluded to that a little bit. Was that opening day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was opening day. So we got this place we call Rainbow's Inn. It's like our honey hole for everything except elk. Although I did see a massive bull back there, like 4th season rifle. So we found this place, and it's a honey hole, and tons of does, tons of turkey, all that stuff. It was the first time I was hunting deer with a rifle, and we had scouted. We saw a bunch of big bucks, and that was our first time seeing big bucks back there. We hadn't seen any during archery season, and we go back to Rainbow's Inn where we had scouted, thought we were going to see all these bucks, and we get back there and there's like nothing. And there's almost nothing more dejecting, like when you first start hunting, than you see all these animals when you're scouting, and then you made up in your mind like, oh, I'm going to go out there, like as soon as I get boots on the ground, I'm going to see a buck and I'm going to shoot it. And when that doesn't happen, it was dejecting. I've definitely calloused a little bit now to understand that, hey, the animals are going to do whatever the hell the animals want to do. But yeah, long story short, we didn't see any animals that morning, and my patients were already like, well, fuck, what's going to happen now? We decided to go get something to eat, and then we drove down the mountain, went up into another canyon, and we were hiking around, saw another hunter and his son, and he comes out and goes, yeah, there's nothing in there. We're like, okay. So we go in there and we start hiking up, and we see a group of deer. There's a small fork buck. And I was like, I'm shooting him. Just get it over with. I'm shooting him. No patience, nothing. It was about 187 yard shot. Shot him. He took a few steps and dead. So we waited until he, dropped and died, and then started walking up to him. And out of the corner of our eye, we see a bunch of movement. And there was like probably 15 or so deer, like next to like the deer that I killed. And long story short, Steve ended up shooting a monster buck probably 15 minutes after I shot mine. So, I mean, it was just an all around just super cool experience.
And it was one of those spots where it's in a canyon. So it's like, like this, straight up. We're like, we don't know what's in here. I see them sometimes. My parents live up, in Estes Park. So I've driven that thousands of times. We see them in there. It's going to suck. Let's leave the packs in the truck and just take our rifles and see if we see anything. And of course, it's like the 5 minutes before dark when I shoot that one. We're skinning them both. D goes back down the mountain, gets the packs in the truck, comes back up while we're quartering them out. And it was just like straight down. I'm drenched in sweat. And he's in front of me, got his headlamp, super steep. Walking on these rocks. He's probably like 20 yards in front of me. Got my pack on. I'm so sweaty that I had taken my hat off and just had my headlamp on my head. And I'm looking down because it's all these little like crevasses inside of these rock formations. And all of a sudden, D'Lo's looking back at me, and all that sweat, I'm looking down at these crevasses, and it just like slips off my head and like goes into the abyss.
Oh no.
And we're, I don't know, 1,000 feet up in this canyon. And I was like, D, you gotta come up here, dude. Like I'm not walking like another step. So we each have a deer on our back, a buck, and I'm holding on to the back of his pack, like, so I can have the light from him. Pitch black outside, no moon, like cloud cover. Yeah, it was ended up being a great experience. But
so how long did it take you to get both animals off the mountain?
I'd say we killed them like right before last light, and we didn't get out of there until about 9.
Yeah, it was enough to where
9:30.
when we got back to my parents' house, my mom, she saw the light at the end of the drive. We got a long driveway up there in the mountains. She saw the light kick on to where she met us like in the driveway. Like, there's no cell phone service, so
Sure, yeah.
I think it's a couple, probably 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
bad though, as considering
No.
how things happen. I myself, I've had this past season. I shot a doe. The wind pushed my arrow just far enough forward where it hit that little dead spot in the brisket there, and it passed straight through. When I saw it go through, I was like, yes, it's gonna be dead. Then it's like, then the real dread came. It's like we crossed 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards. Like, where the fuck is this deer at?
Yeah.
And I called in reinforcements, but as the night was progressing, my headlamp died. I still had a phone on me. So then after that night, I always pack 2 headlamps in there and a backup battery for my phone, so I can fully charge this. This way, I'm not gonna run through that again, because we had to go through water and all that fun stuff. Still never found the deer, but I think it surviving. Or what could have happened too? We about 10:30. I shot the deer like 4:45 right before dusk and stuff like that. 10:30, we got 3 guys. Now the party increased to 3 guys looking for it, and about 10:30 we hear 2 packs sound off. So it's like, well, somebody's eating good tonight, or the deer was going to survive.
Yeah.
Either way, it's like, man, it's frustrating when all of a sudden that all your preparation goes into it, and it's like then your most valuable piece of equipment, either if you lose it or it dies.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing I wanted to go back to, like, just to kind of encapsulate the experience. When I shot that deer, it was like the highest of highs. Still 200 yards away. He's dead, and it was like, yes, I finally did this. I got me an animal. It was incredible. One thing that, I don't hear hunters talk a lot about is the taking of a life. And when you get up close to that animal and you realize that you've taken that life, that definitely, I got a little emotional, definitely had a lot of respect for the animal. And just thinking to myself, like, man, can I continue to do this? Obviously, I'm still doing it. But that's something I think is not talked about often, is just the emotional, I don't want to say emotional toll, just how emotional it is to take a life.
Mhm.
And that really hit me in that moment.
Sure, I completely understand that. I've said the story a few times. It was the fall of 2021, and I had a pair of twins, pair of does, come out in front of me. Archery season, knocked an arrow back, and it's like, well, I'm considering my drive home, all the work I had to put in, so I only took one of the two. And if you ever seen twins interact, I mean, they never leave each other's side. And I shot the first one, straight pass through, dropped immediately, which was fantastic. But then the next 45 minutes changed my entire perspective on life, and watching an animal watch its friend, its sister, go through like what the heck just happened, to grieving, and then back to reality, and then to go back on it. It's like, it was just something that just like, the good Lord made me made me watch this for a reason. And then that was what I came down to it. It's like, you gotta, there's always a further step in your thought process on what you're going to do. It's like, now it's like, when I have another situation like this again, if I'm have the opportunity, do I put an arrow in both of them or a bullet in both of them? What do I do? Because now I've watched what happens, but then I also recognize that animals are just remarkable creatures. It's like they live in the real world. They live in where it's a dog eat dog world, and they gotta get back to reality and continue eating to survive the winter and make sure they don't starve to death and don't get eaten by coyotes or shot by another hunter.
Sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, Matt, have you been able to connect on an animal since you started hunting since 2019?
No, so far I've only archery hunted elk here in Colorado, OTC, public land. And I don't say that because I think that that's like some badge of honor. It's just that's the tags I've gotten. And that's what I've had an opportunity, and these guys are elk hunters first and foremost, and they're obviously my hunting mentors and who I've gone hunting with so far. So my experience has been exclusive to those tags and that experience. Before we came on the air, we were talking about how we're telling a couple stories about some stupidly close encounters, almost embarrassingly close encounters. And that's as far as I've gotten. My very first season, that 2019, first morning, first season, our hike-in is 3 miles in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So we did our hike in, we got in right before shooting light, and we were in elk instantly, bugling, sounded like we were surrounded, sounded like they were coming in. For a couple of us, it sounded like they were, 25, 30 yards out, though in some pretty dense brush. So couldn't see them. Certainly wouldn't have had a shooting, shooting lane at that particular moment. But that was my first experience, and I was like, "Fuck, this is gonna be great! Like we're just gonna be some killers out here." And I obviously came with the right folks, because they just got me right into animals, and unfortunately never saw any animals, let alone had any opportunities in that very moment. And then from there on, I think we were on 4 or 5 days that hunt, And that was by far the closest and what felt like the realest opportunity that we had. And after that, it was a lot more of what we've all, I guess, come to understand about hunting and elk hunting and archery elk hunting and the challenge of it. But yeah, my first experience, I was like, man, this is gonna be dope. We're gonna be tagged out and fucking eating backstraps like day one, like sayonara. And it was Labor Day weekend, so it was like we could probably still get back down and catch like a pool party. Like this could be the greatest weekend ever. So that was my introduction. But we talk quite a bit amongst ourselves about like what is hunting, what do we most enjoy about hunting, what makes it really special. And I obviously that's unique to everybody, or can be unique to everybody. But while I would very much like to and hope to break this streak this year, and I don't, by no stretch am I trying to make the case that hunting and not taking an animal is just as fun as hunting and taking an animal. But my experience, even without taking an animal these last 4 seasons, have been nothing short of, spectacular, even though that word makes it sound more like emotive than it is. It's a deeper enjoyment, probably because you do have such a wide range of emotions when you're out there and you're with people that you really enjoy and care about. And, you develop a bond and a closeness through that experience and through that time spent in the woods. So I think long story long, hopefully this year is the year that I break that streak. But I've enjoyed every last minute enough. I've enjoyed it enough to keep doing it and to spend stupid amounts of money on it.
He did shoot, which he's neglecting to share with everybody. He did shoot the hell out of a 300-gallon trough.
Yeah.
Steve and I, we put him at the watering hole.
Okay.
And we were probably 50, 60 yards away.
Mm-hmm.
And we just hear this noise, like at first light, just bang, just a boom. And it sounded like something had hit like a trough. And we look at each other and go, did Bills just shoot? Did he just shoot an animal? And so after all the commotion, we ended up meeting up. And I was like, dude, did you shoot an elk? He goes, no, I was practicing drawing back and my release went on.
but they put me at this watering hole that was so fucking cold, so cold at the beginning of the morning. And I was freezing my tits off. And I thought I heard, what I ended up hearing was, again, in this area that we hunt on occasion, there's also livestock, cows throughout there. So I hear ruffling. I hear something large moving through bush or brush or whatever. And I'm like, it's fucking on. And also, these guys are going to feel so stupid because they obviously put me at this place because nobody wants to be at this fucking freezing wallow. And I'm about to turn the tables on them and I'm about to harvest. And yeah, I just sent that Rob head right through that watering trough.
Oh man, that's just funny. That kind of reminds me, one of the properties I hunt. I also hunt public land here in Wisconsin, and early morning, first time sitting on this property, and little did I know, I put myself right against. I've seen enough. I've done enough recon where I know the deer coming in and out of. Well, when I got out there that morning, I had no idea that the property butted up right next to a horse. I wouldn't say a hobby farm, but they had horses and stuff like that. All of a sudden, you hear something just come walking through and stuff like that. It's like, oh, this is great. I hear it coming around. It's like, get ready, and here comes this beautiful horse. It's like, well, that's a little disappointing. That's a little disappointing, but it's like the nice thing is there's a clear line, visible fence line that they don't cross. So it's like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to worry about drawing back and hitting the animal. But man, it just, you hear the footsteps. It's like, well, this is not a squirrel. This is not a possum, which they make a lot of noise when you least expect it. I was setting this past fall, and I hear something walking down this trail. I'm setting in this junction, and I'm at full draw because something's gonna show up. And here it is, this little fucking possum sound like a marching band going through the weeds. And here it's just this little guy right here. It's like, and the funny thing was, just like maybe 24 hours earlier, I was talking to my buddy Chris Vega, and he shot himself a possum on his gal's farm he was dating, and it was a nuisance because possums carry so much disease, and they can really harm horses and such. But this was 2 different properties. But man, it's just weird how a little animal can make so much noise.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that was either my first or my second season, and like I said, it was very early in the morning. It was probably right after shooting light, and I'm geeked up. And I mean, I don't want to say that I would have been dumb enough to shoot a cow, but I mean, I don't know if it like poked its head out and I thought I was onto something. Like maybe shooting that water container saved me from a fucking explanation and a hefty bill to a rancher.
Yeah. That is a very good lesson learned right there. So I want to move into the HUNTwallet app here. I was reading through some of your stories here, and I like D'Angelo's relation. Like, he applied for a tag down there in Arizona and not realizing how he's going to keep track of all this stuff. Because I'm a big Randy Newberg fan myself and such. And it's like he just kind of got this really positive attitude about getting people involved in the outdoors. And he's probably one of the most down to earth hunting celebrities, you'd want to call him, out there. I mean, he's involved with the community. He's the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. He's involved with so much, and you listen to his war stories from during dealing with Montana back when they wanted to bring wolves off the endangered species list, and actually learning the true intentions behind that whole scam. It's really heartwarming. I haven't met him yet, but it's one of the potential people I want to meet before he passes away, because you never know what could happen. So, D'Angelo, tell me about your story about your pursuit of elk and when you applied for that tag down there in Arizona.
Sure. I want to say that was 2020 or 2019.
It's probably 2020 application season, because coming out of that is when you got the idea and then approached us, and we started in 2020.
Yes. Yeah. So 2020, it was around February, watching that Randy Newberg video. By that time, I had hunted for about 4 years. So I was finally starting to get comfortable with the complicated process of, preference points, keeping track of preference points, and applying and looking at the hunt codes and everything. And that was just for Colorado. So I was getting comfortable with Colorado. I was watching that Randy Newberg video, Fresh Tracks video. And he was in Arizona. I think it was like a late season rifle hunt.
Okay.
And the bulls were just massive. I mean, he was on public land. I was like, man, I need to go hunt in Arizona. So I immediately hopped on Arizona Fish and Game, and applied for a preference point. I think that week was the deadline to apply for a preference point.
All right.
And very quickly I realized that if I'm going to do this for Arizona, I'll probably want to do it for my home state of Nevada. I want to do it in Wyoming. This is going to be a lot to keep track of. And I went down the path of putting it all in a spreadsheet. And outside of work, I load spreadsheets. And I was like, man, there's got to be a better way. Went and started looking for solutions on the internet, didn't find anything. And probably a few weeks later, I started wireframing, which is basically doing some low fidelity, screenshots of being able to track your preference points, track where you apply to, and things like that. And then once I had it to a point where I was like, man, this is pretty cool, I approached Matt and Steve and showed it to them, and then asked them, what they thought, if they wanted to be a part of the journey. And they both said yes. So biggest con man there. And then, from there, it started as like an application and preference point tracking idea. And it's sort of morphed into this thing that you can not only track your applications and preference points, you can, download the brochures to all 50 states. You can plan hunts with your buddies, or you can plan a hunt by yourself. You can keep track of all of the gear that you have. You can keep track of the gear that you may want to buy. So it's definitely morphed into this all-encompassing, hunt planning and organizing tool.
That's fantastic. I wasn't sure if someone was going to continue on, but that's a nice way of moving into it. So that was the initial hurdle that you saw that you needed to figure out, like, how do we manage all this stuff? So then what were some of the other inspirations, like then bringing in the hunt planning and then the gear management, the task management? Like, what was was this all based off of like Steve's experiences, or were this something that you noticed, Matt?
It was definitely Matt.
Yeah, it's definitely Matt.
I would say, and this is broadly speaking about developing maybe any product, but certainly any software product, it's really easy to expand the scope of what you want to build or what you want to create. And you can do it pretty quickly. And I know that, prior to getting on this episode, we were chatting real quickly about like, what could you share with somebody else who maybe is thinking about creating an app or creating a tool or a solution or building a business maybe in general. And I would say this is one that when we look back on, it's probably one of the first ones that comes to mind, which is it's really easy to construct in your mind a grand vision and a grand product. And it is integral. It is absolutely necessary, I guess, to be able to maintain some focus. And that doesn't mean that like your ideas aren't great or that there aren't a lot of value, but you can only do so much at one particular time, or you only have so much money to create a certain set of features or whatever at a certain time. And so, we've, like you said, we've created at least the basis of, in the beginning of this fully encompassing hunt planning and organizing tool. And there's a ton that's in HUNTwallet right now. And there is a ton that's on the roadmap still to be built or created. And we kind of half joke every once in a while that had we understood the full cost of even just what we've built today, I don't know that we would have gone down this path. Mm-hmm. We all have our day jobs that provide for us and our families and keep the lights on and fund this venture. But this venture, it generates some money, some revenue, but it gets put right back into the app. It's by no means self-sufficient. And, if we would have known the full cost to get to where we are today, the number's not insignificant, right? It's not de minimis. In one way, I think we're all happy that we didn't know the real true cost of what this whole endeavor was going to cost, because we may not have done it, and it's been totally worth it. But it can grow on you rapidly if you just follow, like what do you think is cool? What would be really neat? What would be like the greatest thing to have?
Yeah,
sure.
Like to build on that with Matt, I think a lot of it was just trying to take experiences, and I feel like it's what every hunter can relate to. So like when it came to gear, we would all show up, 3 trucks full of stuff, granted Matt has a GMC and me and D'Lo are Ford guys, so it's much a little smaller, but we would show up and then have multiples of everything with a limited amount of space. There's no reason to bring, playing Tetris, basically trying to get out and then getting like 2 hours of sleep before opening day because we're dealing with, like I see someone else pull out their JetBlue and I'm like, guys, God, like, here's another 5-gallon jug of water. Like, here's 3 archery targets, little blocks. We don't need all this stuff. So I think a lot of it was kind of guiding that. And then from the gear aspect of it, it was understanding what you had, but then going through experiences in the field where we learned like how old is something. So when they put a gear item into their gear list, it's time stamped. So like when your boots are 3 years old, as D'Lo learned, there's a high probability that your laces are going to break in the woods. And do you have paracord or a backup set of laces? Like these little things that we never thought about, where then it happened to us while we were out there. And we were able to learn from that and try to eliminate the biggest pain points that no matter what you hunt, every hunter faces those things.
It's a very good point right there. I myself have not had a shoelace break yet. But then again, as you think about it, like as you just brought up a good point there, Steve, is like, how old are my boots? And how old are my laces? Because I hunt in bluff country, so sometimes I'm going up 600-700 feet elevation to get for a vantage point to look out or try to beat people on public land. To hopefully, if I get there early enough, they'll do the work for me and line something up for me. But that's a really valuable thing. Even like for me, like hot hands, I went through. Last September, before the season opened up, I threw away so many hot hands because they expired, and I've used expired gear. And when your hot hand or your feet warmers die on you, and it's like you're sitting in a tree stand and that steel's pulling the heat out of you, and it's like your hunt becomes extremely miserable real fast.
Yeah, even your story of your headlamp. Like that's a great example of like that small preparation. It turned out not to be so small when you had to live that experience, but like those are those little things like the laces, like the headlamp, where you get that experience and you learn a little something that you'll never forget. I think that like when we tested this for 2 seasons before we launched it, like those were some of the things, we built in, okay, I think we should have an age associated with gear items so that you can track that more easily. Expiration date, it's funny enough you say that, like that's in the roadmap to add to it. Last season, my truck and my garage were broken into separate incidents in July and August, and a good deal of my hunting gear was stolen. And I had to go through the insurance process. And that was another one where a feature that's on the roadmap was born out of. We'll have the ability to enter in serial numbers. So things that are higher value and have a serial number associated with it, like there's a number of use cases for that. In my experience, had I had that in my hunt wallet for some of these items, I wouldn't have had to dig through who knows what to go try to find receipts and email receipts and however I needed to try to find some of these serial numbers so that I could put it down on the sheet for the insurance company to try to get some money back for these things that were stolen. So it's just, our like hunt wallet is in a lot of ways, and especially because it's a younger product, is a reflection of the 3 of us and then some other of our good friends who are lifelong hunters, their experiences. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that, I think that'll serve us to a certain point, and then we'll have to expand that sphere of knowledge and experience. But, everything, almost, I would say almost, if not everything we do, we put in the hunt wallet is we could tie it back to a specific experience.
Mm-hmm.
That is good. That is a great way to build onto something like that. I was looking through the Android version or the details on it. You guys only just launched August 8th of 2022. It's like it's only been on the market for a very short period of time.
Yeah, we launched iOS first in either January or February of 22. January of 22. We were hustling. That's another thing you'll learn if you're getting into app development or software, is just nothing delivers on time.
Like construction.
No, that's so true. I former IT guy. I know. It's like I know exactly what you mean.
So we were hustling with our agency at the time to be able to launch in the App Store before Sportsman's Expo here in Colorado, in Denver. And credit to them, they were fantastic, and they got us over the finish line, I think like 2 days before we were supposed to start the show. But yeah, we made that business decision to launch iOS first. It's an easier platform to develop to. But we knew that to have this collaborative environment, we need to have the major platforms, and we need to have web. So as it stands now, we have iOS, we have Android, we have web, we have mobile web. So, if you're doing a hunt with 3 or 4 people, if one person has an Android and the rest have iPhones, or one person has iPhone, the rest have Androids, or you have an older individual, and not to stereotype folks, but if you have an older individual that doesn't like using their phone necessarily for some of the more detailed features, you can hop right on to your desktop or your laptop computer as well.
That's actually a good way to accommodate all demographics on that particular aspect there. But yeah, from speaking with Jeremy with the Toxon app, he says he's dumped 6 figures into his app. Robert McLean with Fishfin, he's mid 6 figures on his app too. It's a daunting task, but you look at all their apps, it's like they never quit, and that's the best part about it. Like they're always constantly doing things on it. Like one thing that I really like that really stands up for, like regarding Fishfin, they incorporate the weather. So this way, and you can get he pulls all of his data from a bunch of people from NIOSH and a bunch of few others, along with, or NOAA, excuse me. Then he also has a tournament edition where like you, Matt, you can set up in a tournament, and you can have a nationwide, worldwide tournament, and everybody pays in. But they pay in through the app, but the administrator that creates everything, that actually goes to a separate entity. So this way nobody can call it fraud or anything like that, which is a pretty unique thing. Then they've also created like ideas to be able to sell GPS locations. So there's always something like that. And then you've got a Toxon app. His whole idea is to be able to give people opportunity throughout the year to be able to go to 3D events or target events or Vegas or whatever type of tournament they have going on. But at least if you're bored on a weekend, it's nice outside, you open it up, it's like, oh, it looks like there is a shoot down in Missouri. Let's go down there and check it out. Type scenario where you have that flexibility. And he's got Hunt Fest, Monitoring Fest, HHA USA, Tax, who's got events on, or even R100. So he has events on there to bring people to the app. Now it's just trying to figure out like how to bridge that gap for the community. And also biggest thing too is like what you guys probably learned too is dealing with people's PII information, their cell phones, their credit card information. I mean, that is just a lawyer and a half shell right there.
Yeah, especially if you're handling transactions like the Fishfin app. I mean, for all the challenges and brain damage and fun that we've gone through, we only have payment at sign up. So thankfully we haven't had to go down that path. To your point, someone described it to us kind of early on, and I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I don't think I really appreciated what it actually meant when he said it, but software is a living, breathing thing. Like you don't just write software and then it's done you walk away and it just works. Like it's constantly, I don't want to say breaking, but there's constantly issues that have to be resolved. And every time you pull this lever here, something over here moves that you didn't even know was going to move. And then you have to go over there and you got to fix that. And something down here moves as well. So, it's a blast, but you learn a lot pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, I completely understand that. You are correct on that aspect too. When I was working for app support for a Fortune 5 company before I moved out of that department into my current position, yeah, it's like we had 7, 8 different teams doing multiple different tasks. So if one thing broke on one side, we're over here fixing that, or if we're dealing with like my particular aspect is I dealt with all of the employees that dealt with the proprietary software. Like, okay, this isn't working, so I got to send this off to this group. Yeah, it's a nightmare. That's why I got out of that IT department, and then I'm really enjoying where I work for right now. So, but it's definitely, I have a whole new respect. There's some definitely a lot of people that I got to meet that deserve raises or make more money because they know their shit, and it's like I will go to them hands down if anything else breaks down. Then I was talking to my old supervisor, and she was gone, and then on Monday they dropped a restructuring while she's gone, while a bunch of leadership's gone. I was like, oh well, I'm glad I'm no longer in that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, try this one on for size. So when we very first came up with D came up with the idea, and we got on board, and we're bootstrapped and so forth. We got this idea in our head that we would build this fucking thing ourselves through like a low code
Okay.
tool. And I think Steve was probably he was probably the most intelligent of the group, because I don't think he even attempted.
No.
And D'Angelo and I got onto this program. We're fucking gung ho, like, hell yeah, we're gonna save so much money. And what we're trying to do really isn't that sophisticated, right? Like, so we could probably just like learn this on the fly. I think 2.5 weeks, we both came back together. We were like, there's no fucking way that we are gonna achieve anything, the two of us. And that's when we went. And then that's when we started researching agencies and talking to people that we knew that were, had similar businesses or were developers themselves and everything. But we look back on that and like, God damn, that was foolish.
Yeah.
Sure.
No part of that made any fucking sense.
That's the best part of it too. It's 3 non-technical founders, and then we're sitting there like, yeah, this shouldn't take them long. Let's make this the priority. And like, that one probably is going to take a lot of time, and like spending the time going through it. And then you send it off to them and they're like, whew, that one that you thought was like a 30-minute fix is like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that feature, actually, I don't think that feature is even that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to use that anyway. So we could probably cut that.
What's been interesting since the beginning to now is the progression, seeing the progression from all of us. Initially it was, oh, this has to be perfect and nitpicking everything. Now it's more of a, does it work? Yeah, it works. Could it be better? Yes. Let's ship it. And it's taken us a while to get there, but I think for us, we realized that, feedback is important, and always getting things out for the users to new things out for the users to test, for us to test. It's been pretty interesting to see like our progression from the beginning to now.
100%. Like it like goes back into the very beginning when D'Lo is going through all these states, and then I work in construction, and he'd be like, hey, how many points do you have in South Dakota? And I'd be like, all right, when I get home, I'll log on and let's see if it makes sense for this year. Or how many points do you have for this in Colorado? I think, you, Matt, and D, I think we could all draw that tag. And it was this, archaic process of going and having to log into all these various states. And so it ends up being a 2-day thing when you're trying to figure it out. So the frustration from, one person trying to figure it out, but then you're having to wait. And then that was a big driver. I feel like when you could put in preference points and bonus points by states, now, we ask, and it's, if you have your phone with you, it's 5 minutes, or if it's, they know they'll get a reply at lunchtime. Like,
Sure.
It's right then.
So do you think as the evolution of the app goes, are you going to build bonds with the BLM to be able to have access to be able to have the app pull directly from the server farms to be able to pull that information, or are you still going to keep that gap in between the two, so this way you can still log into their system, pull the information out and put it in manually. What are your thoughts on that?
Now you're just talking dirty to us.
Yeah. That's what we love, but like what we're saying is archaic. That's what they operate. That's the world that they operate in. The states aren't going to change. Like we've went down that road trying to figure it out. And that's obviously, you know, something down the road I feel like we would want to come up with, but they're also archaic in the approach and on their end that I don't know if that tie is even possible.
Okay.
To my understanding and the research that I've done specifically, I don't think any of the 50 states offer an API into their system. And I'm not convinced that they are motivated to, from their perspective, I don't think there is a motivation or a value to do it. We all know hunter demographics and kind of where those sit, and the people that are in the leadership and decision-making positions. I don't think it's a big priority to them, and that's not a criticism. That's not like a value judgment or anything. I just, in their world of competing interests and finite resources and everything else, I don't think that writing an API is at the top of their list. So would we like that? I mean, yeah, that's like a wet dream, right? Like to be able to talk back and forth with all of these disparate, you have 50 states. We'll just start there, right? So you automatically have 50 different or at least dissimilar systems. And then those systems don't, like within those departments, they don't even necessarily always talk, the right hand doesn't always talk to the left hand. So I don't think we're holding out for a lot of hope on that side, but I do think that there's a lot of kind of tricks and different things that we could do that could kind of mimic that, or at least for the user experience, it could appear as if it's all very seamless. And you know, that's just for us to figure out the best way to get to that point.
Sure. Now, for those who don't know what API stands for, it's Application Programming Interface. And what it is a set of functions and procedures that allow the communication between everything. Now, for getting back to my relation, or what I understand, I work with the VA, so I exactly know what you're talking about, because they don't talk to each other. Because you got one set of egos over here, you got another set of egos over here, and they don't want to talk, because it's like, how dare they come up with something better than my idea?
Yeah.
It's a cluster, man. I tell you what, dealing with the back end between the VA and stuff like that, dealing with their our forms and our procedures that we had to go back through to make sure everything's done. And it's like we don't tell them to jump; they tell us to jump. We just have to ask how high, and then we gotta wait for them to respond, because sometimes it could be immediately or it could be weeks. We just never knew.
Yeah, and it seems, I mean, you've lived this, like it seems simple from the outside. It seems straightforward, and it rarely is. And it doesn't matter if it's Hawaii's Fish and Game Department, which is
laissez-faire.
Yeah, very much so. Or it's Apple. Like just the other day, we had an issue with a date picker tool not working on Safari, and we do a little bit of research and come to find out that date pickers in Safari are a continuing known issue. And for anyone who doesn't understand, date picker is just when you go to enter a date and it brings up a calendar, you know, and you select the date from it. That's just a date picker. And you just think to yourself, like, I'm developing a tool for the Apple App Store, and I'm having problem with Apple's native browser. Like, it does not compute. But that's the world that when you get into this, you start to understand that none of it, everything that seems like it would be simple is not, and the stuff that seems like it wouldn't be simple is really not simple.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, when it comes down to, I was reading through your gear management there. Do you guys have it in your mind to be able to open up everybody's backpack for others to comment and tell them like, hey, I've used this, I've had it fail to me, but I recommend this? Is that going to be an option to have people critique other packs just to kind of give a perspective on, like, if I was going to show my pack to anybody, it'd be to Steve. It's like, hey, well, this is what my pack is. What do you think? And like, you can go through, it's like, that's garbage, replace it with this type of aspect.
Do you take that?
So basically, are you just, I want to make sure I'm understanding you. You want to be able to get feedback on the gear that you're planning to pack, or all of the gear that an experienced hunter may have that you may be interested in?
Both, actually. It's a good way to phrase how you explain it, but it would be actually to be both to answer your question there, because it would be nice to show them like, this is what I have currently, and then with the date stamps you guys provided, it gives anybody an opportunity to look at it. It's like, okay, so it looks like he's got X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, then somebody can, like, Matt can say, like, I recommend this for a base layer. Steve can come in and say, hey, I recommend these for socks, just to kind of provide that community that people really thrive on. That's what kind of keeps the outdoor realm going, is the community that we've established and being able to provide advice, and at least provide valuable advice. There's always those keyboard warriors out there that says, oh, your pack sucks, and it's like, they don't elaborate why it sucks.
Yeah.
For sure. So yes, so currently in the profile, you can view like your gear locker, you can view your wish list, you can view another hunter's gear locker. On the roadmap, what we plan on doing is currently having the ability for users to ask questions. So basically what you're referring to, ask questions about a given or interact or comment on a given like gear item. So we'll say like the shitty pack. How's this pack? Does your pack really suck? From an actual, now that's the gear locker. From an actual gear list perspective, at least that's where my mind goes to when you're saying like, look, let me look in your pack.
Sure.
That's something that we just have not discussed. And I mean, it is a valid point. On the roadmap, we are going to have the ability to where you can add notes and things like that to a specific gear item, but interacting with a gear list item, like asking, so use case, a inexperienced hunter asks a experienced hunter, how do these fit? Or how does your pack fit around your waist, or something like that within the application? I think is could be a potential solution to that.
Okay.
I think the only thing I would add to that is just the ability to communicate within the hunt. Say if it's a group hunt, like that'll exist. So within the group hunt, within the members of the group hunt, you'll be able to, here shortly, you'll be able to communicate amongst each other. Now, the ability to actually comment on a specific gear item, I think that, honestly, Jeff, I think that might be the first time that we've heard that specific feedback. So that's something we will take back to, the R&D and kind of try to understand like how that would work and where it could fit into how we're trying to accomplish things.
That's a good, I'm glad I gave you an opportunity to do that. Now, another thing too, is that we have all of these supplement companies. We have Wilderness Athlete, we have First Form, there is Bucked Up. Have you guys started like also figuring out ways to implement into the gear locker? Like, hey, it's like, well, I see Mr. Vance is using Altitude Advantage from Wilderness Athlete, and it's like, and it's listed in there. It's like, well, I want to buy that. Are you guys thinking out ways to be able to like establish an affiliate link or figure out a dealership program where this way, when a person does look in to somebody's gear locker or their wish list, they see something like that, like, oh, I want that. You buy it, then you guys get a cut from it. Have you guys looked at being able to figure out a way to bridge that gap?
Yeah, that's something we've talked about in the past, and it came up relatively early in the process because I think it's kind of an intuitive idea to get to. But right now, our sole kind of focus and what is driving almost all of the app development is getting to this place where we have this vision in our mind of like what a complete planning and organizing tool would or should be, before we get into different ways to monetize, different ways to kind of like activate user data or whatever, that kind of stuff. Because if we can build a tool that gives hunters the features that they need and want, and we can package it in an intuitive manner and create like a really good user experience, then at least in our view, then like it opens up to the world, like all kinds of different things you could do to kind of like refine and really dial in that experience. And maybe like, you know, back to Steve's example, like if we start to understand that 85% of our users will get a new pair of boots after 3.4 years of having it, like we can look at that and be like, okay, maybe that we can help out our users that when their boots hit 3 point whatever years, we can give them a nudge and be like, hey, maybe it's time to look to a new pair of boots. But like getting this, what we all, again, as hunters ourselves, feel like is this comprehensive hunt planning and organizing tool right now, that's where all of our energy and resources are going.
Okay, that's a good understanding to go from it. Because I was going to say that there's my repeat guest and a good friend of mine, Cameron Stover. He is the owner operator of HuntingGearDeals.com, and where he has an algorithm where he searches out and he has relationships with all the vendors out there and pulls the best deals on a weekly or on a daily basis to provide that extra value. And it's like, well, when that day comes, it's like, let's do you two meet and be able to get how to keep HUNTwallet ahead of the copycats that are probably going to eventually show up.
Absolutely.
Now, is there anything that what do you guys got planned for the upcoming summer months? Are you going to be attending any events? Going to do 3D shoots? How can it'd be fun to be able to get your audience to be able to shoot with you guys at some of the events that are coming up throughout the next few months before elk season kicks off.
Next weekend we'll be at the Best of the Best archery shoot. It's the Gladiators Unleashed and Aaron Snyder of Kafaru. It's up in Bailey. I don't believe they're full for the event. So if you're in Colorado, I definitely recommend looking at that and signing up. And then at the end of June, we'll be at the Western Hunt Fest at American Bowman up in Bailey as well. And then we are going to start down the path. So we got like a little chunk of development that we believe can take the application to another level. And once we get that developed, which hopefully we'll have that developed here in the next week or so, we're going to start, setting up at the sportsmen's warehouses, the Cabela's, the Shields, the local archery shops, and really, getting into the community.
Yeah, being in Colorado, like we're very fortunate for the Western hunting world, right? Like it's a great place to be there. So our focus right now as we're a young brand and a young product is to really like try to I guess like really burrow into Colorado and into our backyard and into the hunters that are nearest to us. And so there's obviously great events all over the country, which is actually really, really cool. You could go to what would be considered a Western archery event in the Eastern United States, with some of the TAC events and so forth. But like for us right now, with our resources and our time and so forth, like we are 100% really focusing on what we can do in Colorado, which is why, like D'Angelo said, we'll be at a couple events at American Bowman in Bailey, Colorado. while we'll be at these local retailers, while we did Sportsman's Expo. We did go to Western
Hunt Expo.
Hunt Expo there in Salt Lake this year, which is just a fantastic, incredible show and experience. Have you been out to that one?
No, I have not. I've not traveled to that event yet. When is that usually typically hosted?
February.
February. See, that's where it gets a little sketchy because you never know what time you're going to have to deal with the massive snowstorm. And coming from Wisconsin, it's like I usually, once the season tends to hit, I tend to stick to the Midwest when the expo season comes on, just because of the fact that you never know when you're going to run into a storm. Like I went to the Iowa Deer Classic, and I had to get in front of a snowstorm that was coming, and that kind of plays a the biggest hold setback is that potentially running into that setback of running into a winter storm.
We ran into that this year coming back from Western Hunt Expo. We ended up leaving at about 5 p.m. that night just to get in front of a storm.
Yeah, I don't know if we got in front of it.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you, I think we must have been all of 10, 15 minutes ahead of them shutting the gates on I-80 in Wyoming and shutting the highway down. And we were slip sliding pretty good.
Yeah.
I think if the wives knew how that trip home went down, they would have been less than enthusiastic about the drive.
I just thank God we were in a Ford.
Yeah. It's one of those drives where it's like silent, and then it's like we get to a gas station, it's like, good job.
We survived. We made it a few more feet.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, we'll be at some local events. I mean, local to Colorado. And we'll be at some archery shops, some gear shops. And if there are opportunities that present themselves, that come up between now and the season, we'll be there. But, between trying to develop some of the new features and then, do all this on our free time effectively, I think we'll have a pretty full summer. And as you know, and every other hunter, it's gonna be September before you know it.
That is exactly right, man. I know. It's like it's only May. It's almost June. It's like, man, where did May go?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just the other day, I was starting to look at my calendar to start looking at scouting when I can get up to scout, and all of a sudden I was like, shit, man, I only got like 4 weekends that aren't spoken for already. And it's, it's only June. So it's going to fill up quickly, which, shameless plug. We think of HUNTwallet as like a hunt planning and organizing tool. Well, we plan all of our scouting trips in it. We plan fishing trips in it. We plan all of our expos, all the things. Essentially, if we plan on bringing anything, if there's some type of date component to it,
The tasks.
and there's some tasks that we need to get done in anticipation, that is the core of like what HUNTwallet. So if you take the applications, point tracking, that kind of the brochures and that side out of it, it's gear, it's tasks, it's deadlines, and it's planning, dates, which is really what it comes down to. So, D'Angelo planned going to the hospital for the birth of his second child in it, or at least, built that out for things he needed to get done and things he needed to take. So it's got a lot of value outside of just planning hunts.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to plan dates with my wife. That one just hasn't gone over well.
Yeah, well, that's because you got a little more sensitive in the tasks you assigned to her.
Funny. Now, has there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you guys want to speak on?
I would just say, holistically, if someone's like, what is HUNTwallet? Would just say, it's all your hunts in your pocket. It's all your gears in your pocket. It's all your to-dos in your pocket. We've taken everything that we use as hunters already but in disparate tools, whether that's spreadsheets, whether it's stickies, whether it's the notes on your phone, whether it's the text message communication, whatever. And we've just brought it into one place that's always on you, that is easy and intuitive. And then we've married it with automatic notifications so that you don't, hopefully you never miss a deadline. And as we know, hunting is one of those kind of unique things that we do where you miss a deadline and you're toast for a year. Like if I don't buy a ski ticket, I just don't get to ski that day. You know what I mean? Or like take that kind of idea. Well, you don't get an application in. Sorry, sucks to be you. Be better next year. So that's really what HUNTwallet is. If you were to sum it up just in a few sentences, it's every hunt in your pocket, all your gear in your pocket, to-dos in your pocket, and reminders.
And I think, like, to add on to what Matt's saying, I think two areas that you just don't hear a lot about in hunting is the monetary side of things. And inside of your gear locker, there's the wish list. So it's all that stuff that you want or that is needed for the upcoming season, and actually putting a true cost behind that. And then it helps you plan to you're not dropping, $1,000 in August and your wife is like, what the hell are these charges on the credit card? It allows you to be like, okay, well, $100 a month, isn't like a shock to the system, planning appropriately leading up to it. And then I think also on the monetary side, when you're putting in for all these states and all of these tags, it really allows you to understand and make decisions. Am I going to just do Wyoming and South Dakota? This is what my tag fees are going to be. I'm not accounting for fuel. I'm not accounting for, stay, lodging, any of those things yet. So it really helps draw that picture, and I think can help bring full circle, like in a family situation when a wife is asking or a husband is asking, what is that really going to cost? It makes it simple. It puts it out there for them so they can understand, help them budget for it. What do they need to work for? What do they need to save? That sort of thing.
That's fantastic, guys. And then another thing is I want to include that if you're not aware of a BioLife or some place to donate plasma, it is a great way to help supplement your income there, guys and gals, to be able to have tax-free income to be able to put towards that hunting. I mean, you may look like a heroin addict, but in the end, it can save you thousands of dollars. I mean, I've used my BioLife money to buy guns and to buy bows and equipment and all kinds of fun stuff just to be able to offset that, because my wife and I have our own goals and such, but to going out to be able to do the stuff and not impede on our budget and to get in the way of retirement stuff, like, because we're very heavily focused on trying to build our retirement, but also like how do we have this ability to live and such. So if you have a BioLife or SC or CSL Plasma, those are two just companies I know that are here. They're primarily found in college towns and such, but it's a great way to bring in, like, I think right now, for example, BioLife in La Crosse, they're paying $115 a week. So I mean, you add that up, that's $460 right there. That's a new pistol or a whole bunch of fun gear.
Yeah,
It's a lot of arrows.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Or just a quiver full of arrows.
That is true. For that, what's that?
That's given life to take life. I like that.
That's a slogan: "Give life to take life."
Yeah.
Now, I did do some digging here. I went and found the link to where you can sign up for the Best Archery Showdown that's coming up here at the AmericanBowman.org. And you can do there's two means of sign up. You can do a team competition or an individual competition. I have the link dropped in the comment section, so those who can do it. But now there are some qualifications for it, or there's some rules to it. There's no same-day registrations will be allowed, and all registration ends June 5th, so that's coming up extremely quickly.
Yeah, I think it's 5 days out. Tomorrow is
31st.
31st. So yeah, you got 6 days.
Exactly.
Sign up for that one. That one's, I mean, that and Western Hunt Fest are equally awesome. Best of the best. I think if I had to say, it's probably going to be more personality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be some personalities at that event, and I mean that in a very positive way. Western Hunt Fest, I think, is just like, you got some fucking grinders in there because you've got that pack out challenge, and you got people that are really serious. They're really about that life. So they're equal. They're both badass, but I think they're going to be different in their own ways. Best. I'm looking for the best because one, we haven't done it before, and two, just knowing the few people like Luke that we do know. Josh is another one. I'm spacing on his name, unfortunately. He's retired to hunt. He has a podcast called Retired to Hunt. Those folks up there are going to make for a fun experience.
Yeah.
Got a tattoo artist coming in, so people are going to be getting inked up while they're drinking. I don't know if that's even allowed, but
It all depends on the state regulation, so that it can be illegal to do that. Like I know here this is a county ordinance here in Wisconsin, but you cannot be intoxicated in La Crosse and get a tattoo. So that's just the county one. To add into more details about Best of the Best, since it is coming up real quick, Saturday is the team event. 40 teams, $250 per team, and then Sunday is the individual event. $130 per person, limited to 100 shooters, period. But like they say in the disclaimer there, doesn't matter what the weather is, you're going to be shooting in, whether it be rain, sleet, shine, or snow, and no refunds if you don't show. So that's on you.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago we got
Last year.
was it last year?
Yeah.
A very late snowstorm. I think it dumped like 2.5 feet on their asses.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, man! That definitely really kind of puts you in perspective. It's like you need to get that hunt wallet to be prepared for this event.
Yeah. Got it.
And then, where are some of the best ways to reach out to you guys? How are you guys have emails you want to share, or do you guys want to tell them to go to your Instagram or Facebook? What are the best ways to find you?
So I Instagram at HUNTwallet. Matt runs our social. When he slacks, which is very seldom, I'll hop in there. And then hello at HUNTwallet. So everybody, I mean, the three guys that you see here this is our tech support, this is marketing, this is sales. So if you reach out to us in either one of those channels, likelihood is that one of us is going to be responding to you.
Fantastic. And one of the watchers here, Dosed After Dark, reached out to us. Pro tip: don't show your wife your finances. And pro tip number 2: it's allowed if you don't tell anyone. So it's like I like that. If they don't know, you'd say it's okay.
Yeah. Somebody suggested a feature where you could share your wish list, but it would actually change all the prices and lower them significantly. So I don't know if we'll be going through with that, but I think there's a lot of people along that same line of thinking.
No kidding. Yeah. That's why my wife loves to hunt. This is her bow sitting up behind me. I've helped her tweak it to become a better archer herself. And like for an example, this is how awesome she is. Instead of for a wedding ring, she wanted a sidearm. So we went to the gun show.
Oh, is that awesome?
And pick out her own.
Is that awesome, buddy?
Yeah, right.
Okay, watch yourself.
I think it is. It's just like I look at the positive side of it. But hey, at least like if I do get shot in the back, it's like, well, I probably deserved it, and you know who the culprit is.
Yeah, and you know what? Not many people can say they got shot with the gun they purchased for their significant other.
There's probably a few women on death row that could beg to differ. Well, all right, guys. Thank you. I want to say thank you for taking time on your night to joining us. I see the wine is flowing very well in your end there, and everybody else is tuned in for this 2-hour show. Appreciate your long time being in here, and thank you for Dosed After Dark for commenting in the comment section. But anyways, everybody have a great night.